People, I saw somebody referencing Shelly Kagan's Yale lecture series, Death. And I've watched it. I'm not a philosopher, but from what I can tell, it's very bad. Even his book, Death, was reviewed by some other people, and they say it's one of the worst written philosophy books that there is. Because them, death is never bad. And contrast this with Todd May's book, Death, the philosophical advisor for The Good Place. He states both the positive and negative aspects of death. And this bothers me because Shelly Kagan gets referenced quite a lot when you talk about death. Look at any YouTube philosophical discussion about the subject, he comes up. Why him? Todd May also has a book, and his book is way more balanced. I say this because Shelly Kagan's series, one of the references he makes is to 2001 A Space Odyssey, where a robot is getting shut down as an allegory for human emotion. So he's comparing a robot to a human. We are nowhere near close to that. And this is where I say people who say they don't want immortality are basically full of BS. You might get bored. Well, we get bored now, but we find shit to do. Another argument he makes is that, well, at the beginning of your life and who you are in 300 years, it's not the same person. You've changed. Because this would allow you to not be bored. But then I'm thinking, this happens now. There's a film reviewer who watched Requiem of a Dream at 3 different points in his life. And as you change over time, your viewpoint of the film changes. There's another thing on Reddit specifically asked Reddit about watching Disney movies back, comparing how you saw it as a child versus how you saw it now. You change all throughout your life. Why the double standard now all of a sudden? It's the continuation of information that matters. Is it still you? So even that's a bad argument. I'm sorry. Another philosopher pointed this out. I forgot his name though. He did a live stream with Michael Shermer where he said that's a weak argument. But here's the 2 things that really get me about Shelly Kagan's lecture series. One, he doesn't touch on grief. He doesn't. He randomly talks about it for a sentence. He doesn't touch on it. The sentence goes, some people fear the loss of a loved one. Sure, the loss of a loved one sucks, but no one really fears that. I'm like, now grief sucks. When my dog had to be put down, I was suicidally depressed. No, not suicidally depressed, but that first symptom of depression came up. I never had the illness of depression, but I thought at that moment, if this is how depression feels, I can 100% understand why people commit suicide. The second is when he talks about Lucretius's argument of, you didn't have life before birth. Why should your post-death non-existence matter? And he then states a very good argument. It's very difficult to argue against. Because in the first period of non-existence, you're gaining something. In the second period of non-existence, you're losing something. And that loss is worse than what you had before. Now, what he does with this is very clever. Guess what he does? He turns it into jeopardy. He turns it into a question and says, can you see what's wrong with it? It doesn't make any sense. I'm like, no. You're the lecturer. I'm paying money to have you explain to me what's wrong with it. Turning it into a jeopardy type question and just saying, do you see what's wrong? No, I don't. It's a perfectly valid argument. Oh, and the third thing. He talks about one lecture where he says, nobody believes that they're going to die. Think of yourself dead. That's your funeral. I'm like, yes. What the argument boils down to is that cognitively, a human being cannot conceive of being dead. He doesn't take the argument there. He says, you're imagining yourself at your funeral. That's your funeral, that's not your death. Cognitively, you cannot imagine it. And since the brain can't do that, our fight or flight response kicks in, boom. We get fearful because we can't imagine it. We can't grasp it. Stan Lee even said this. He isn't afraid of death, but he can't grasp the concept of nothingness. And the human brain can't. Try thinking of nothing. Even if you think of nothing, you're thinking of black. And black is a color. And that is still something. So, I don't get why this guy is hyped up so much. Todd May does a lot better job of showcasing the badness of this. Even his argument against immortality is something I struggle to refute with. He says, imagine this a bird flying every 10,000 years. And every 10,000 years he takes one grain of sand at the Savannah Desert away. Eventually that will be finished and there will be no more sand at the Savannah Desert. Where he puts it is irrelevant. That time that elapsed is a drop in the bucket of eternity if you were to have immortality. Now, I'm sorry, that's a lot better argument than the two that Shelly Kagan comes up with. You'd get bored. Fuck wow, we get bored now. Big whoop. 2. The person you are at the beginning and the person you'd be at 300 years is not the same person. Well, we change throughout our lifetimes now. If it doesn't bother us now, how would it be at the end of eternity? Or how would it be for eternity? If we change like that forever, we'd also never get bored because we have new perspectives. Think about this one film critic, Jeremy something. He has a YouTube channel. He reviewed Requiem of a Dream recently again, last year. And he said he had a different perspective than when he was 20 when he watched it. Although he knew everything that was going to happen. So you'd literally never be bored. Because you're seeing something with new, fresh eyes. But it's not you. No, it is still me. It's still the continuation of information. If I replace parts on a car, I don't go, shit, this is a completely different car. No, it's still, say, a Ford Mustang. It's still the same thing. Get what I'm saying?